Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. As we count down the days of the VALORANT World Championship, one of the big questions is what is going to happen when we get to that event, especially with NRG and what they have been cooking up in recent weeks. The Odin Meta wasn't exactly pioneered by this team, but there is no doubt that Brook and others are taking it to the next level. There is some debate on whether the current Odin Meta that they are really pushing forward should even be allowed. Bren is not so happy about it from a casting and commentary perspective. The fans definitely have their opinions as well, and FNS believes, though, that there's a little bit more depth to this situation that would be nice to hear other teams and what they can do to even look to counter it when they get to the big tournament. Very much enjoy to your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I really appreciate it. And yeah, quite the moment here from Baby Bay, as we know. Now, just to follow up on this, there were these rumours going around, we talked about it yesterday, that Gentlemates could be back in the franchise league with BBL being gone. Now this, as we said yesterday, didn't make much sense in terms of, because the rumour was that BBL were going to get removed. That's what this guy said anyway. This guy has, let's say, a questionable track record. Now, I wasn't really sure I could see a world where BBL would get removed, just because it's profitable for BBL to stay in the league as a partner team, because they get paid, right? They get a stipend to stay in the league. So the only world where BBL would go is if they left for some reason, right? And then maybe they would get replaced in that circumstance. And, you know, we've potentially seen that in the past with someone like Bleed getting replaced by other teams. So that's something to at least think about what that would look like. But the partnership agreements aren't up for renewal yet. So the idea of BBL getting kicked out seems pretty unlikely. Then we saw Thomas, who quote tweeted this or replied and basically said, "This isn't true. BBL will be continuing in the VCT for 2026. Please get real sources when you make reports like this because it ruins all reporters' reputation." So he tweeted this, then he deleted it, as we saw yesterday. And then he tweeted it again last night. So presumably now that opinion is now back on the agenda. So I don't really know why he deleted it the first time. But yeah, he's of the opinion that no, BBL aren't going anywhere. Gentlemates aren't coming back in. And that always was the most likely scenario all along. So we'll see if there's anything changes on that. Because, you know, with 48 teams in the league, there's always something brewing behind the scenes, I would imagine. A few things with the patch update 11.05. Riot introducing penalties for players who consistently either Q dodge or they stay AFK. That's a pretty good update if they can make it work properly. There's also rumours that Harbour is going to receive an update, likely a buff after Champions, but you know, there was a rumour on that as well, but it looks like he's received new visual effect to his abilities for the time being. It's not like Harbour is especially well utilised as it stands. These are the pick rates actually around the world in Stage 2 2025, and sometimes in the past we used to see pretty big differences per region, but we're not seeing much difference right now. Omen is the dominant agent of the current meta, and for good reason. In China, he's picked 86% of the time. In the Pacific, only 74% only, but still by far the most picked agent there. EMEA, 80%, Americas, 78%. Pretty interesting how similar the Americas and the Pacific are, just in terms of their pick rates, almost identical, whereas China and EMEA are a little bit more similar there, but apart from that, it's of course Sova and Viper, pretty much hovering at about 50% pick rate in all of the regions. So those are the strongest agents in the game as far as the pros currently see it. All-time kill leaders at Champions. Some of these guys aren't even going to be there, right? A number of them are not even going to be there to try and extend these numbers, but Aspas, who is the kill leader, will be there at the World Championship. The only player to have over 1,000 kills at the World Championship, and Durka will not reach that number this year because he's not going to be there, unfortunately. Vitality did not qualify. But let's talk about some of this drama with regard to the Odin, right? So NRG, they have, you know, I wouldn't say they've pioneered the use of the Odin. The Odin's been around a long time, and it's been used controversially also for a long time. Spam this wall, spam that wall, whatever. And look, that is kind of the way Valorant is. They allow that to be the way that it is. If Riot wanted to change it and allow things not to be wallbanged as much, or reduce the amount of bullets the Odin has, or massively increase the, like, let's say, spread that it has as a weapon, there's some things that they could think about there. But I think generally it's seen that, okay, some of the agents in this game are pretty cheesy in terms of what they can do. The Odin might be pretty cheesy as well, but, you know, it makes it different to something like Counter-Strike where, you know, people aren't pulling out in the givs in professional play. But the Odin is absolutely utilized and is very viable, and is probably more viable than players give it credit for. I think you tend to find that things that are kind of cheesy and feel like, oh, that's not, like, you wouldn't be too serious to use that. Players, especially, you know, players that used to be around in Counter-Strike and stuff, it's like the SG meta in CS. It was like, oh, it's the COD gun, it's got the scope on it, it can't be any good. And it turned out it actually was really good, but no one was using it like the AUG and the SG, that meta that happened in CS for a while, because people suddenly realized, hang on, these guns are actually pretty godlike. We had just not used them because we thought they were a bit, like, we thought they weren't a serious gun. And I think you get that a bit with the Odin, that there's a general perception of the players that, well, the Odin isn't really like a serious gun. Obviously, it's very good, but, you know, we can beat it playing normally. And yeah, to be fair, G2, they beat what NRG were cooking up by approaching it. That, you know, they played their game. Is there much of a counter to an Odin apart from pulling out your own one? Not necessarily, but this is what NRG have gone for, right? They've made progress in recent weeks, and a large part of it is because their defensive setups are utilizing a lot of Odin. Not to say that Brook is an Odin merchant, he was doing a great job on the other weapons as well, but it was certainly a key part of their strategy that has led to them, of course, making the finals and therefore making it to the World Championship. Now, there is some discussion on this from like a commentary perspective, from a fan perspective, whether this is really what we want to see. Look, the players are going to trends to play the game in the most optimal way. They don't care what it looks like. They want to win, right? So if you want the game to look pretty and be played how you want it to be played, then that's a design decision that Riot have to make in terms of whether they allow the Odin to continue unchecked as it currently is. But I get his perspective, right? Bren says their Lotus defense looks horrific to play into, genuinely. When they've got this double Odin setup, it looks disgusting, it's horrible. I hate casting it. You're not even casting Valorant. I'm looking at ants chasing a pheromone trail. It's disgusting work, it's not honest, but I respect the game, I respect that it wins, I respect that it's a cornerstone of strategy, which is absolutely, I think, the correct opinion. It's okay to not like it, but it simply is what it is. But I do think that, if the commentators and many of the fans are saying, wow, like, I'm not enjoying watching this, which I also totally understand. I kind of enjoy how outrageous it is in some regards, but if that's how you can play the game for maximum effectiveness, then that's what these guys are gonna do, and they're not gonna stop doing it. So, having said that, I just wanted to quickly share what FNS had to say. There was an interview with the coach of G2 after they took down NRG, and FNS was like, look, this Odin meta is really interesting. I would love to hear a question about that from the interviewer, and just kind of giving some constructive criticism onto the way that things are generally structured, and then in addition to this general criticism of the state of the Odin as it stands in Valorant right now.
Seemingly in control of these first two maps, but you are getting a bit of resistance in the coaching booth. Does it feel like G2 is in control?
Honestly, there's times where we're like, wow, what's going on?
Okay, I'm gonna say something about these interviews. Constructive criticism, all right? Take it or leave it. Before they do the interview, just come to my chat and ask me a question on what you need to ask the coach. Because I want to ask the coach, what did they do to prepare for the Odins? Did they counter it just by having them? Or was there a special preparation made for it? What the f is that question? I hate some of these questions. I feel like you could ask so many actual things. And that's no hate, because I don't think it's supposed to be that serious. But you could just ask a serious question and get some information. Maybe that's just me. Maybe analytically, I would just like to hear like what the mindset behind the map picks, mindset behind like how you counter NRG's Odins, those kinds of things. Constructive criticism. Yeah, but coaches won't reveal stuff like that. I 100% guarantee that if Josh RT is asked on stage right there, what did you do to prepare for Lotus Odins? He would have answered relatively honestly. Just buy some of our own. We prepped for it last night just to make sure that we have some for ourselves so we can spam back. Whatever it is. Did they counter it? Did they try to even counter it? Or did they just play their own game? Whatever it is. Low key, won't you be tempted to ask, name the other 5 players? I'm not going to lie. If any of these guys have the balls to ask, you know what, chat? Okay, don't snitch. I'm going to be at least on one desk segment in Paris, all right? I'm going to tell you right now. And I'm going to ask that question. My first question to them is going to be like, all right, before we get started, I actually have a question. Name 5 players on 2G. And I just want to hear the silence. To do it on the actual broadcast is... I promise I'll do it. I promise. Chat, if I go on a desk segment, I have nothing to lose. You have to understand, a man that has nothing to lose is capable of anything. I have absolutely nothing to lose. What am I going to lose? It'll just be funny. Like, no one will take that Personal?
Yeah,
RIP
we
watch
would
party rights.
definitely
Okay,
a
that's
little
true.
A few interesting things to close out the video. Tens is heading back to North America. Of course, he spent some time out in the Pacific for the playoffs over there. So just pretty interesting that Tens is spending more time in the Pacific, really, than he is in the Americas, at least when it comes to in-region Valorant stuff, which is understandable. But, you know, it's good to see him still involved in the scene anyway, because he didn't necessarily have to be. There's also a couple of things about potential returns. So Six says, I've been getting back into Valorant in the last weeks. I started streaming at the start of the year, playing other games. My community's been nice and understanding. I didn't think I'd make it this far, but I'm glad I did. I was balling. So, look, who knows? Maybe Sick could be on the way back. Dapper even says, I'm thinking I'm back. So, look, who knows what this offseason is going to cook up. But it's just, with Baby Bay getting back into G2, it's like anything surely is possible here in the Pro League right now. This is also kind of interesting. These are not your 16 teams at the World Championship, but these aren't far away. Now, this is, I don't think this is necessarily fully true, because I think what's been done here is like, okay, look at the point standings as they are right now, but last year it was the top 3 from playoffs that made champions rather than the top 2 and then the others on points. So just to show that Talon would have made it in the Pacific because they were 3rd, and in EMEA BBL would have made it, right? So, you know, we could have had a scenario. I think really what I wanted to share this for is just to say, do we like the current format? Do we think this is a good way of determining the teams that go to the World Championship, the top 2 at playoffs, and then the best of the rest on points? And obviously, if you're so far ahead in points, then you're going to make it for sure, guaranteed. I don't hate it. I think it gets a little bit complicated at times. I also personally love a last chance qualifier. I think a last chance qualifier is a sensational event, and, you know, because there's so much on the line, so much to play for, there's one spot. Personally, I prefer tournaments where the finals is the most important game, whereas, okay, congratulations G2, right? They won the Americas playoffs, and that's a great result. But NRG versus Cloud9 was a more interesting series to me. And I don't know how many other people feel that way, but I think it's probably quite a lot. Like, NRG Cloud9 was like, wow, you've got to qualify for the World Championship, which is really the tournament that all matters. So to me, that series is more engaging than the Grand Finals, which, you know, it is what it is. I just like a last chance qualifier because the Grand Finals is the most important match. One of these teams will make it, one of these teams doesn't. So much on the line, and I don't know. I wish they'd bring back the LCQ personally and have that form part of the upcoming format. But very much interested to your thoughts as always in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.